Alright, so in this tutorial, what we're going to try to do is draw the heart. And so you're going to need a pencil to do this, because we're going to draw some stuff and then we're going to erase some stuff to make some pathways through. So let's go ahead and get started. You need at least about a half a page to do this. And we're going to start with this shape here. Now, it's not going to look exactly like the heart you get in a Valentine's card because the heart doesn't really look like that at all. There's sort of a point at the end, not a very sharp point, and this little nub here doesn't, I guess, need to be there. Some people maybe. But there's a little point at the bottom called the apex, and it's sort of tilted this way in the body, maybe not quite so much this way, but it is pointed to the left. And there is a lot of muscle at the bottom. At the bottom of the heart is where all the pumping chambers are. Those are known as ventricles. So we're going to have, there is a thin layer of muscle here to this side. We're going to make sort of this W shape here. There's a divider here. And then on this side, the muscle gets a lot thicker. Okay, so the muscle wall on this side is substantially thicker. So we're going to actually shade this in here, and this is going to be the muscle wall. So these are the ventricles. This is what actually pushes the blood either to the body or to the lungs. And if you recall from our study of muscle tissue, what type of tissue is it? What type of muscle tissue is in the heart? I'm pausing. Imagine that at some point someone has already said cardiac, and that's the answer. Remember that it has visible striations, that this muscle tissue is involuntary, and it has multiple nuclei, and it is branched. So of all the muscle types, it's the most similar to skeletal muscle, but probably don't need to bring this part up quite as high over here. Like I said, we'll draw some, we'll erase some. Okay. There we go. All right. Most similar to skeletal muscle, because the only major differences between this and skeletal muscle is whether it's voluntary or not, and then these cells branch. Okay, leading into the heart, we're going to have, we need blood to come in from the bottom here, and we need blood to be able to come in from the top. For the time being too, go ahead and put a dotted line here that's going to represent the separation between these two chambers at the top. We're going to work with this in just a little bit and erase and kind of redraw some stuff. This tube that leads into the top right here is bringing venous blood from all over the body, or actually from the upper part of the body. So blood coming back to, or back to the heart from the brain, from the arms, the shoulders, and upper body is coming in through this vessel right here. And because it's on top, it's known as the superior vena cava. I've heard cava as well. It's fine. Yeah, just either one. So superior vena cava, which means that this one right here needs to be the, that's right, inferior vena cava. Okay, so blood's coming in from the inferior vena cava. It's coming from like the legs, it's coming from the organs, it's coming from the liver, it's coming from all the portions of the bottom of the body. So it's going to be coming up against gravity, and so it's going to be working its way back through here. And they all empty into this chamber here, which is the right atrium. Now, the patient's right is always right, the patient's left is always left. So even though this appears to be on the left side, it is still the right. Now, I encourage you again, don't think about it, oh, it's the opposite. It's just whatever you think it is, it's the opposite. That's not true. Because if you're facing the back of the patient, this will also be your right side and their right side. But the patient's right is always right, the patient's left is always left. Okay. Then there's this valve. Okay. This valve is going to prevent the blood from flowing backwards. And we're going to leave just a little bit of a gap right here, and I'll show you what we'll fill that in with in just a second. And I'm going to draw 3 flaps on this, and flaps in this case is the word cusp. Okay, I'm circling that because there's 3 of them. This is called the tricuspid valve. Tricuspid valve. There will be another one on the other side here called the bicuspid. I heard a neat little rule here. Blood comes into the heart, hits this one before that one, because you try it before you buy it. Boom. All right. So blood then travels down into here, and then these pumping chambers of the heart are going to push the blood back up. Well, we don't want it to go backwards, which is the purpose of this valve. Valves work like this, okay? They allow blood to flow one direction, whoosh, like that, but when blood tries to get pushed back against them, they close back up again, which incidentally is why our heart has sounds. That's the sounds of valves closing. Whoosh, whoosh. And because 2 sets of valves close one after the other, it's like, that's where the heart sounds come from, is these 2 valves closing and then these 2 other ones we're about to draw closing. So blood will not be allowed to pass through this way, but blood can pass through this way. And let me show you what this looks like. There is a tube that goes up here and out like that. So we have to erase this to allow for an opening. Blood leaves this side of the heart to head to the lungs. And the word for lungs, things related to the lungs, is the word pulmonary. Okay? So everything that's going to and from the lungs is going to have pulmonary in its name. This valve here, for example. Now, this valve, because it's shaped like a half moon, gets the nickname semilunar valve. Oh, I forgot to name this chamber. What chamber is this big pumping chamber here? That's right ventricle. Felt like Dora the Explorer there. Say backpack! Good! Sorry. Alright, right ventricle. This right here, I said pulmonary. Pulmonary valve. In some cases, they will throw the word, that looks like value, sorry. Pulmonary valve, they'll throw the word semilunar in here as a description. Lunar being moon, semi being half, like these little valve flaps are half moon shaped. When we do the deer heart dissection and we look at that, you're going to see that these valves are almost clear. They're really, really thin. These are super thick. These are a lot thinner because this has to encounter, remember, form follows function. This has to encounter the forces of the ventricles contracting. This actually goes with that flow. And the only reason this valve exists is to prevent blood from falling backwards into this chamber through gravity. This right here is called the pulmonary trunk. In some textbooks, trunks, good one, like swim trunks. Some textbooks don't mention this. They just mention what comes out up here at the top. Well, we only got one pulmonary trunk and we have 2 lungs. So when it comes up here, we're going to branch off. We're going to go left and right like that. Okay? And so we're going to branch off and head to the right lung and to the left lung. So this vessel is traveling over here. And these lungs aren't normally this far away. They're actually kind of wrapping around the heart in both directions. So lung. Remember, I just told you, blood vessels that go away from the heart are called arteries. So this is a pulmonary artery. Blood vessels that go back to the heart are called veins. And so pulmonary veins are going back. So this lung is going to have blood vessels that are going back to the heart, and they're going to attach right about here. And those are pulmonary veins. Now there's more than one there's usually two leading in from this side and then two coming in from this direction as well, going back behind the heart and emptying into this chamber. So the blood's going to the lungs to both drop off carbon dioxide and to pick up oxygen. Then it's going back to the heart through the pulmonary vein. Here we're going to enter the left atrium, and blood will travel from that through this valve right here. Now this one only has two flaps. As such, this valve is known as the bicuspid valve, and its nickname is the mitral valve. It's the same thing. If you see the word mitral valve, it's the same thing as bicuspid. I should have actually left a little bit of room like we did on the other side. My bad. Like I said, you need to do this in pencil so we can erase some as we go. Okay. This chamber then, which is the most muscular chamber in the body, again, form follows function, is the left ventricle. Because blood that enters this chamber is going to get ejected back out to the entire body. So this chamber right here, we're going to have a big tube leaving that. Okay, big tube. And another half moon flap there. These two right here are called, this is called the aortic valve, or aortic semilunar valve, because it's also half moon shape. And this major vessel that's traveling back behind here is actually going to work its way up and around. It's huge. It's as big around as your thumb is. So, in fact, let's go ahead and draw this big vessel, and then we'll show where it's going back behind, like there. So, okay. So it's going over the top of these two, so we'll erase those. Bear in mind, we're not destroying these blood vessels. They disappear, but they're still here, but they're disappearing back behind this because this vessel is crossing in front. So I'm erasing just this little section here of the right pulmonary artery. And this is known as the aorta. Aorta, know that one. Yeah. All right. So then the blood travels up there. There's actually, we'll just, if we want to make it a little more accurate, there's 3 pipes coming out of the top of this to go to the head and arm. That goes up. That one goes up. And this one goes up. The rest of this gets piped back behind here and through. But this is the aorta. It changes names a few times. Up here, it's called the ascending aorta, and then there's the aortic arch, and then descending aorta, then thoracic and abdominal. But either way, that's the aorta right here. So here's the pathway. Now that we have the heart drawn, blood comes in through the superior and inferior vena cava into the right atrium, passes through the tricuspid valve to the right ventricle, travels back up through the pulmonary valve to the pulmonary trunk, pulmonary artery, to the lung, where it drops off carbon dioxide and it picks up oxygen. Then it works its way back through the pulmonary vein to the left atrium, through the bicuspid or mitral valve, to the left ventricle, through the aortic valve, to the aorta, to the rest of the body. So that's basically it, folks. So that is the heart. What I would encourage you to do is start to trace the path of blood through here and see if you can name the parts. Maybe even cut up little pieces of paper or tear up pieces of paper to cover up these terms here, so you can practice going through the parts of the heart and identify them as you go through. One last little detail. The point at the bottom of the heart is called the apex. And the wall in between right and left side here is called the interventricular septum. This wall is super important because it keeps deoxygenated blood from mixing with oxygenated blood. Alright, that should do it. Hopefully yours looks something like this. If not, go to the modules, watch the video again, and modify your drawing as such. Have a great day, folks, and as always, be a winner.